going back to what we spoke about 2 dafim ago, and that is the inyan of kol hamenachos ba'os matzah, which we said, according to some Rishonim, is very much related to the inyan that on Pesach we have a mitzvah to eat matzah, and we're very much prohibited from eating chametz. We said that really, in order to fully appreciate the connection between kol hamenachos ba'os matzah and the avodah of chametz and matzah on Pesach, we have to have a better understanding of the avodah of chametz and matzah. And in the first Rebbe, we went through understanding a little bit better matzah zu shanu oichlan al shumma. I think that for today's shir, we should shift a little bit and discuss chametz zu she'ein anu oichlan al shumma. Why is it that a Yid is not allowed to eat chametz on Pesach? So, if you ask the man on the street, why not allowed to eat chametz on Pesach? What's he going to say? What's he going to say? You might actually stump him a little bit, because it's not mefurish in the Haggadah, right? Pesach, matzah, maror, that we know. That's mitzvah shrichas kavanah, it's a mitzvah saseh. A lois saseh is not the inyan of mitzvah shrichas kavanah, right? So you're not mechavin not to eat chametz. Why is it that you're not allowed to eat chametz? I think the pashut pshat is, it's part and parcel. It's the flip side of the same coin of why you're supposed to eat matzah. You're supposed to eat matzah on Pesach, and that's matzah zu shanu oichlin al shumma. That we know what the reason is. It's because the Yidden didn't have a chance to allow the dough to rise because they were forced to leave Mitzrayim so quickly, and it's because of that we eat matzah. And part and parcel of making this very strong zecher to that inyan and of matzah is we say not only should you eat a kazayas of matzah, you're not going to eat chametz matzah, halayla zeh matzah, kulay matzah. You're only going to eat matzah. And the inyan is because we want to enforce the zecher of matzah. So really the iser chametz, what, it's a zecher for something specific? Yeah, it's a zecher for the matzah. So part and parcel of the matzah zu she'anu oichlin al shumma is this inyan of also not eating chametz. I think that's the pashut pshat. The emes is, if you think about the Issa Chametz, it's mamish a davar pella. It's a davar pella. Think about how chametz on Pesach is. For starters, chametz on Pesach is a lois saseh, right? Now let eat chametz on Pesach. If somebody eats chametz on Pesach, he's chayiv kares. Not only are you not allowed to eat chametz on Pesach, you're not allowed to have chametz in your possession on Pesach. By the way, not only are you not allowed to have chametz in your possession on Pesach, if someone does, he's over 2 lavin, right? There's a chaymer of 2 lavin. Tosfos and the Rishonim always discuss, asay is deicha lois asay. Can asay be deicha 2 lavin? It's a shmuz. 2 lavin is more serious than only 1 lav. You have the lav by your matzeh. On top of that, there's also an asay, the asay of tashbisu. So think about how many in every miyuchis sugya, chametz gets a shout out, right? It's in the sugya of asay being deicha 2 lavin. It's in the sugya of ein asay deicha lois asay v'asay. It's in the sugya of kares, right? It has mamish every yichus you can have. This has, right? Think about how chomer it is. It's an incredible thing. On top of that, the Rabbanon went, and the Rabbanon were even moisef. The Rabbanon said that chametz is asa b'hana. Not only is chametz asa b'hana, chametz sha'avar all of our Pesach is asa b'hana. Right? It's August now. Yeah, but if you had scotch sitting in your house and you didn't sell it, you're not allowed to make a l'chaim with that now in Shabbos Nachmu. It's chametz sha'avar all of our Pesach. That's something that's going to be asa b'hana. In the world of bittul, when you have a taruvos of chametz and a davar amuter, chametz we know is b'mashahu. So if you think about it, it's almost irrationally prohibitive. And it's very, very tzarech beer. What's the reason for this? Why would chametz be so chamer? You know who discusses this shaila? The Radvaz. The Radvaz. In Shailas Tshuvas Radvaz, in Tshuva, there's a lot of Tshuvas from the Radvaz Kiyadua, Tov Kuf Ayin Zayin. This is 977. The Radvaz was asked this question. Someone asked him, Ma nishtana chametz bepesach mikol yisurim shebetayr. Why is it that chametz and Pesach is so different than all the other Isurei Torah. And he went on and mentioned everything that we just spoke at and more, by the way. The fact that in order not to be able by Rabbi Yematzeh, so you're supposed to do Bittul Chametz and Hamavatul, Tzarech Sheyivdoi, right? It's mind-boggling, the amount of things that we do. And the Radvaz goes through and he explains the Shaila of the Shaila very nicely, and he tells him there's zero precedent for this. Not only is there no precedent, he says, even Avodah Zarah, where it says, V'lo yidbak biyotcha me'uma min ha'cherem, which Avodah Zarah is shakul kineged kol ha'torah kula. It is not as chamer to have an Avodah Zarah sandwich in your refrigerator as it is to have chametz b'Pesach. And it's a pella, and the Shayla asks this to Radvaz, and he taka no havana. And the Radvaz says, I have two mahalchim how I can answer this question. The first mahalach, which he spends the majority of the tshuva discussing, is a mahalach that at the end of the day he says, I don't prefer, because I feel it has holes in it. So as a result, Ayin Sham. Take a look at Tshuvas Radvaz, Tshuva 977. But then the Radvaz says, I'm going to tell you the pshat that I think is the pshat. And that is, Al Masha Amru Razal. I'm relying on what Chazal said in the Medrash. Ki chametz bepesach, chametz on Pesach, remez li Yetzer Hora. It's a remez to the Yetzer Hora. Vu sa'or shebe'isa. It is the proverbial sa'or shebe'isa, the sourdough of the dough. It's for that reason, the person has to make sure that he's going to get rid of it from himself. And he has to search every crevice of his machshavos. And you have to make sure that you eradicate it completely, and you don't even leave over a kolshu. What I'm telling you now is emes v'nachon. So says the Radvaz, I was mispointed in the Issa Chametz, the fact that you're not allowed to eat it, and if you eat it, you chayiv kares, and you can't even have it in your rishos, and if you do, you're over two lavin, and an asay, and the fact that it's asa b'hana, and even chametz sha'ava all of our Pesach is asa b'hana, and the fact that even if you mevatel it, so you're not over by your Rabbi Yematzeh and Tashbisu, but afilu hachi, you have to do a bedika, and even if you have a mashu left over, in a taruvos, afilu be'elef loy batel, said I was mispointed, and the only rationale, the only explanation I can come up with is that the chametz in Pesach is the sarsha be'isa, and it's for that reason you have to get rid of it. You have to eradicate every trace of it. And if Rahman al-Litzlan, there's one trace, you never know what that can ultimately lead to. And it's for that reason, afilu amashu, you have to have a perfect clean bill of health, because if there's a little bit there, that in of itself could be very, very dangerous. Now, what's this medrash that the Radvaz is referring to? So the medrash that he's referring to is a Zohar HaKadosh. It's in Rai Mehemna. It's in Parshas Boy on Daf Mem Amud Beis. So the Rai Mehemna goes through all the different isurim that you have on Pesach. Vayisa ames b'tzeikoi terem yechmatz. Zokte Rai Mehemna pikuda dal levar chametz. This pasuk is teaching us the mitzvah to do bir chametz. And he goes on to explain, I'm skipping a little bit, because we know the Chaverim said on the pasuk Sar lo yimatzeh bevatechem v'rosa ikimno ben chametz u'matzah dekama duchti, that the chiluk you always find between chametz and matzah is da Yetzer Ra v'da Yetzer Tov. That the matzah is the Yetzer Tov and the chametz is the Yetzer Ra. So Sar lo yimatzeh bevatechem and vayisa ames b'tzeikei terem yachmatz, and the Issa deiraisa by Rabbi Yematzeh and the mitzvah derabanan of b'dikas chametz is all related to the inyan that the chametz is the Yetzer Hora, and it's for that reason on Pesach you have to get rid of the Yetzer Hora. This is the medrash that the Radvaz was referring to, and he says al kenan yisoymech al divrei Razal b'midrashos. This must be what's going on over here, and this must be why it's so chamer, the inyan of chametz on Pesach. Now the truth is, the fact that the Yetzer Hora is referred to as the Sar Shebe'isa, everybody knows that. Where do you think the term Sar Shebe'isa comes from? Right, it comes from that inyan. It's a Gemara Masechtas Brachos, Daf Yud Zayin Amar Aleph. The Gemara says, Alexandri Basa the Matzli Amar Hachi. When he would finish davening, he would say the following tefillah: Ribaynoi Lamnin, Goli v'yadu lefanecha, sheritzoynenu lasos ritzoyncha. Umi ma'akev sa'or shebe'isa v'shibud malchiyos. He ratzei milfanecha shetatzilenu miyadam v'noshav lasos chukri ritzoynech v'lei v'shalom. So Alexander used to say a tefillah, and he would say that, Eibush, you know how badly you didn't want to serve you, but you know what gets in the way? The Sar Shabba'isa gets in the way. Who's the Sar Shabba'isa? It's the Yetzer, Zakrashi. So you see already, Rabbi Alexandri referred to the Yetzer as the Sar Shabba'isa. It's mefurish in Zohar HaKadosh that's the inyan of Bir Chametz and Bittul Chametz, and it's for that reason, Dr. Advaz, it's the only way I can make sense of this inyan. Truth is, I saw that Bar Benel, Afenard, here in Parshas Bay. He says, why is Chametz so serious? Why is it so chamer? The Bar Benel, the ultimate Pashtan. A Bar Benel, who learns Pshutei Shal Mikra, right? We know this from the Chumash Yirim, Shein Einmal. Bar Benel learns exactly like the Radvaz. He says the Pshat has to be because the Chametz represents the Yetzer Hara, and there's an avodah of the Yid on Pesach, he has to get rid of the Yetzer Hara. Now the truth is, you have to think about this for 1 second. On Pesach, there's an avodah of getting rid. That's what the whole Chametz business is. Right? This is what this is all about. And this is what it's about. Yeah, it's a shaykhis to matzah, but come on, it doesn't explain it. How can chametz be so much more chametz than matzah if chametz is like a sif cotton in matzah, right? The teretz is, no, chametz represents the Yetzer Hara, and on Pesach there's an avodah of getting rid of the Sar Shabba'isa, eradicating every little trace, because any little Yetzer Hara that a person has in his machshav even could, Rahman al one day become a very, very big problem. What does it have to do with Pesach? What does it have to do with Pesach? Pesach is man cheruseinu. I would think that this is an elul digavoida. I would think that this is something you do maybe Rosh Hashanah, Aseret Yimei Tshuva, Zicha Yom Kippur. Right? I would think Yom Kippur, don't eat chametz. That sounds like a good idea, right? Thou shalt not eat chametz on Yom Kippur. That would make a lot of sense. Because on Yom Kippur, don't even have it in your house. Bal Yeirah, Bal Yemotzeh, right? That's what you would think would be a perfect Inyan. Because it's a Zman of Tshuva, and in the Zman of Tshuva, you have to fight your Yetzer. That's what Tshuva is. So you have to have Charot Alava and Kabbalah Alasid. So what you should do is you should take an Oira there, you should be Baidik B'chayre Stockin, and this is going to be Ma'ira you very, very much to understand with Pnimius what you're really trying to do. And by you going ahead and by you doing that like this, you're going to be able to get rid of the Yetzer. What's the Shaykhis? What's Pashib Shat? What's Pashib Shat? What's the correlation? What's the connection between this Avodah and with the Avodah of Pesach? And again, sometimes you learn a Medrash, you learn a Chazal. Okay, this is Al Pi Remez, Al Pi Soid. Maybe it doesn't have to be so matir with the Pashup Shah. But Rav Vaz is telling you this is the only way I could learn the Parsha. I have no understanding of the Chaymer of Chametz unless you tell me the Chametz represents the Yetzer Hara, and by us getting rid of Chametz, we're somehow internalizing B'pnimius this idea that we're getting rid of our Yetzer. And the Abar Benel said the same exact thing. So if you have two 16th century Go'imim that are telling you the same exact thing, and they're saying this is the only way we can give Zech an Eitzah with the parish of Chametz, that means there has to be something very, very strongly correlating this Avodah and Pesach. Because I don't think there's anything that screams Pesach from the rooftops more than Chametz, or the lack thereof. So what exactly is the connection? And there has to be a Pashut answer to this. If the answer is not Pashut, you're wrong. You can't come up with a pilpul. You can't tell me a Chakira. It has to be a Pashut answer. But I think the answer is Pashut. I think it's so Pashut that's why we overlook it a little bit. And that is, before the Yidden left Mitzrayim, they brought a carbon Pesach. Why did they bring the carbon Pesach? The pasuk says, "Mishchu ukchu lachem tzayin, mishchu yetchem me'avodah zara ukchu lachem tzayin shel mitzvah." When we learned the Chumash in Parshas Bay, we spoke about the Rambam and the Boira, and some interesting Egyptology raid about how the Egyptians were notorious over the avodah zara, and one of the primary avodah zaras that they used to worship was Mazel Tleh, the constellation of Nisan, which is the Tleh, and it's for that reason the Yidden were told take their avodah zara and shecht it, slaughter it, and give it up to who? To the real creator of the world. Give it to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Before the Yidden left Mitzrayim, they were told, listen, Chevra, we're leaving. We're going to go away from 430, 400, 210, 116, 86. You're getting rid of that whole terrible, traumatic chapter in your lives. But before you leave, you need to detach yourself from the culture of the Egyptians. That was the carbon Pesach. And it started with taking the carbon on the 10th day, and they had to do Beaker for 4 days. It was a tremendous avodah. But before the Yidden left Mitzrayim, they needed to detach themselves on some level from the culture of Mitzrayim. And that meant Mishchu Yetchem me'avodah zara. And then afterwards, Ukchu lachem tzayin shel mitzvah. That was the avodah of the carbon Pesach. It would seem that the avodah of Chametz is very much related to the avodah of the carbon Pesach. The Yidden were told, you're going to leave, but in order for you to leave, you have to detach yourself from the avodah zarah, beseder. And that's going to be done with this one incredible Pa'ula, and that is take the Avodah Zarah, the Egyptians, a suicide mission, and bring it as a carbon, literally, to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But in addition to that, every single person was told that he has to go ahead, he has to be mevar the chametz from his house, which meant don't have any chametz inside your neshama. Take the chametz out of your guf, out of your machshava. That's part and parcel of the avodah. This is not some Gishmaka Indian that you find in Sfurim HaKdoshim that relate to the Yontav of No, the Yidden left Mitzrayim after they brought the Korban Pesach, because the first thing they had to do was Mishchu K'chulach Emtzayin. So they had to first detach themselves from the Avodah Zarah. Part and parcel of detaching themselves from the Avodah Zarah, part of this Avodah was to go not just to the symptom, go to the source. Right, the Avodah Zarah is the symptom. What's the source of these problems? It's all the Sar Shabisa, Mi Ma'akiv, the Sar Shabisa. So if you can get rid of the taiva comes from the Yetzer. So if you get rid of the Yetzer, you knock out the taiva, the gaiva, the kin, everything goes along with it, right? So what they were told is you have to go to the shayrish. And that's why every year Pesach, when the Avodah Chazit Zechibur again, of Mishchu Yetchem Avodah Zarah, get rid of the Avodah Zarah and understand Emunah, understand Bitachin, understand HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So the Avodah is, we get rid of the Chametz because we understand that the Chametz represents the Sar Shabisa, and being that the Chametz represents the Sar Shabisa, that's the Avodah of the Yid on Pesach. This is not some Agav de Gezach. Think about what the Yidden did when they left Mitzrayim. First they got rid of the Avodah Zarah and then they left Mitzrayim. That's what we need to do. That's what it means to prepare for Pesach. Prepare for Pesach means mishchu yetchem. It means what? Just make sure you don't have a crumb in your house? Yeah, that's what it means in the Olam HaMaisa. But let's be honest, if somebody figures out a way to get rid of every crumb, but he never thought about the Sar Shabisa was licked him in the neshama. According to the Radvaz, according to that Barbanel, he missed the whole sfina. He mamish missed the whole point. He missed the whole point. Rahman al-Tzlan. It's very hard to prepare for Pesach. And again, we have to do it. These are mitzvahs. But at the same time, you get a lot of schar for doing it. But in terms of the Sheirish mitzvah, understanding the pnimius of the mitzvah, Zokter Advaz, Zokter Barbanel, this is the Pashup Shav. I have no other way. So again, when you hear the Sar Shabisa the next time, it's not masses. It's not Chsidish Torah. It's not Sfurim HaKdoshim. This is Pashup Shav in the mitzvah, Zokter Advaz, Zokter Barbanel. I just want to be Messiah with a Marumokim Nefla that I found. The Ezra Hashem Yisbarach. I found this in the Haggadah from the Chidah. So the Chidah wrote a Haggadah, it's called Simchas HaRegel. And in the beginning of the Haggadah, as a Hakdama, he has what he refers to as Gimel Limudim. He says there's 3 limudim, 3 musar zachin that you could take out of the Leila Seder. And he writes, Kedarka, a beautiful pilpul on these 3 limudim that you could take out. The first limud is related to kol chamira de ikr b'shuse, the chazisi or the loy chazisi, the v'arte or the loy v'arte, lift of lahavak after the ara. Talks about the Indian of beer chametz, and he says as follows. He says v'kvar nishal haradvazal b'tshuvoisav hanitfasas chadoshes me'ata ba'ashken ha'asimin tof kufayin da above. He says Radvaz was already asked such an obvious question. He was asked that, I understand, why is chametz on Pesach so chamer? Ma nishtanu chametz b'Pesach mishari surim shabbatayra. Karis, you can't even have it. Tulavin, and Aseh, Asa Bahana, Chamish Aval Pesach is even Asa Bahana. It's B'mashu, you have to do bitl, you have to do bedika. And the Chidah brings the Mahalach of the Ratvaz. He said, the pshat is, Al Ken Ani Soymech, Al Divrei Razal B'Midrashis, and that is that the Chametz represents the Sar Shabisa. And when you understand that it represents, the Sar Shabisa represents the Yetzer Hara, you know how serious it is if a person has a little bit of Yetzer Hara inside of him? You have to get rid of it. Chalila, you can't have a dot of Yetzer Hara. So you're right, if you think of it, of Chametz as a crumb, then it just feels a little, right? Maybe we're overdoing it a little bit. Like we're overplaying our hand. It's the Yetzer Hara, a little bit of Yetzer Hara in the machshava from a mensch, Rachmano is like to take the whole person down. One day that Yetzer Hara can creep up and it's over. So that's a very, the Mishnah says, right? The Yetzer Hara is very, very dangerous, and that's why when you fight the Yetzer Hara, it's b'mashu. You did bittel, I don't care. You better do bedika too. It's in a taruvas. What do you mean it's in a taruvas? I don't care if it's in a taruvas. That mashu can always come and rear its ugly head, and it's for that reason it's so chum. See, the Chidah brings the kasha that the shoyel asked the Radvaz, this beautiful, beautiful question, and he brings the teretz of the Radvaz and says the Chidah, he says, your eyes are now seeing very, very clearly. Shaharav Zechrein Levracha, referring to the Radvaz. pishpeish v'loy matzah tam l'chumras chametz asher echmiru Torah v'razal. He said he was pishpeish v'loy matzah, right? This is pun intended. He searched and he tried looking this way and looking that way, and he could not find any mahalach al pi apshat v'adin. He had no Yetzer. And he was forced to come to the Remes. The Radva is writing a tshuva. He doesn't read the Abarbanel, but we found it in the Abarbanel also. He said he had absolutely no mahalach how to do it. V'nimtza shaharemes shalachomitz hu apshat. The remez of chametz is the pshat. Ki kol hachumroi sa'elu lo'erer ha'adam shetzorich lehisrachik ma'oid min ha'yetzer hara u'lechapes b'choyrei v'sitkei chadrei libai im shemetz davar nimtza by lemaher levarei u'lesarfai. This is what the yid has to do. Ulizar ma'oid b'bayirah b'yimatzei kulei v'ulai yinatzal mimenu. And then kedarkei, in a poetic way that only the Chida was able to write in. He goes and he talks about this inyan. How beautiful is that? V'nimtza Haremesh al achometz hu hapshat. Poshit boktein. Haremesh al achometz hu hapshat. Chida says a lot of things in that Limud Aleph. It's mamish beautiful, ayin sham. But I'll just tell you one, and we'll end with this. And that is, we know one of the most basic halachas of bittul chametz is ein bittul chametz ela b'sreifa. It's machlokes Rabbi Yehuda and the Chacham and how you mekayim the mitzvah of tashbisu. But we do it with sreifa. It says, why does it have to be with sreifa? Ein bittul chametz ela b'sreifa. He says that if the whole Indian of chametz is really just a remes to the Yetzer Hara, that means what the Torah is telling you is that the way you get rid of the Yetzer Hara is with sreifa. You have to burn the Yetzer Hara. He says, how do you burn the Yetzer Hara? What does that even mean? So he says, the Gemara says, Mesechtes Kedushin barasi Yetzer Hara ubarasi Torah taflin, which means the one way for a yid to overcome the Yetzer Hara, there's one way and one way only, and that is, it's through Torah. Torah is nimshal eish. You know how you soirif the chametz? You know how you burn the sar shebeisa? It's with the fire of Torah, zok the Chida. And the Chida says that I want to tell you. He says, I've seen a lot of people, they try to be ma'ira people l'tshuva. Some people do it with nice shmuzin, and some people do it this way, and some people do it that way. It's all gevaldik. It's all gevaldik. But he says at the end of the day, the only thing that has staying power, the only way a yid can actually get rid of his Yetzer Hara, ein bittul chametz ela b'sreifa, Chazal said. It's the only way you can be mekayim the mitzvah of tashbisu is by burning it. It's through Torah, and it's a befurish Chazal. Barasi Yetzer Hara, barasi Torah tavim. Shalom says right in the beginning of the sefer that the Torah told you this is the only thing that works, and if the Torah is telling you it's the only thing that works, the doctor told you this is all that works. So no, what are you gonna do? You're gonna fight with the doctor? There's nothing else that works. The only Yetzer is the Torah, but it's not just the Torah; it's the fire of the Torah. That's the Yetzer. You overcome the Yetzer Hara. It's with the fire of the Torah. A person can learn Torah and it's not fire. It's fire. As long as we say fire, it's fire. This is the takeaway. You want to know what the lesson is? We fight the Yetzer Hara. We fight the Yetzer Hara this way, that way, and the other way. But at the end of the day, barasi Yetzer Hara, barasi Torah tavlin, and the yontif of Pesach from all places. Who would have thunk it? The yontif of Pesach teaches us this incredible Musa Haskell, and that is the paship shat of the chametz is the sosh of Isa. It's the Gemara Brachos Yudzayin Amar Aleph. It's the Rai Mehemden Parshas Bay Daf Mem Amar Beis. We have to manage. This is something. This is coming as news to me. So it's something that we all need together. Have to process a little bit and try to make sense of. But at the end of the day, the way we're mekayim the mitzvah of tashbisu is ba'esh tisroifu. We throw it into the fire. It's the fire of Torah. When a person engages himself in the passion of learning, he immerses himself in the eish of Torah, he realizes there are things that are more geschmack and sweeter and more fire-dig than all the tanuge and havle olam hazeh. That's the way to overcome the Yetzer Hara. We should be zoicha through the eish of Torah, kulei hai v'ulai yinotzel. But we should be zoicha to have some level of gvura over the Yetzer Hara.